In today's video, we're going to be discussing why many of you could be getting trapped right now. I want to go through the current market conditions, discuss the recent pullback that we've seen across Bitcoin and altcoins, and give you my outlook on the next few weeks. I also want to share some of the coins that I am DCAing into today, given the fact that we are seeing a market-wide dip. And some of these sectors, I do believe, are going to be the strongest performers as the market eventually starts to recover. How quick will that recovery happen? That is something I'll also be discussing today. Without further ado, let's get straight into the video. So taking a look at Bitcoin here, you can see that the Bitcoin price has retraced from almost hitting $100,000 to $92,000 where it sits right now. It did even wick down to $91,000 this morning. Just looking on the lower time frames on the 4-hourly, and also if we scan across the daily, you can see that we have broken momentum a little bit. We are starting to retest a major support level around the $90,000 zone. So for me, nothing here is out of the ordinary. I think it's only natural for Bitcoin, if we go into the weekly chart here, to have a cool down after such an aggressive rally to the upside. You can see that it also looks like Bitcoin wants to come down and test this weekly support level as well, where the previous weekly candle ended up opening. So for me, I'm not like super bearish or super scared right now. I think it's a normal cool down in the market. This may be a case of Bitcoin starting to consolidate a little bit. Actually, sometimes in bull runs, we see periods where Bitcoin stalls while alts start to take center stage. I've actually got a theory that it might be time for Ethereum to outperform Bitcoin for a little bit, just given that ETH BTC has been so beaten down. We're already starting to see this reversal, but I think ETH may push up a little bit higher versus Bitcoin. So for me, there's nothing out of the ordinary. So any of the panic that you're seeing on X, if you are on X, I think I don't think a lot of it's justified. I mean, we're basically back to the prices that we were a week ago, right? So nothing really to worry about here. Just a classic Bitcoin cool down. Is this the local top? Well, it very well may be for the next few weeks at least. I don't know if we're going to go and test 100K again necessarily this week because, we had our chance, we had momentum, it stalled out, but I do think we might consolidate under those levels and then eventually break through when the right catalyst comes. And that could be as simple as, a major stock market pump, which is about to make all-time highs. So nothing really worries me currently. My main plan at the moment is to continue to stack quality altcoins. We'll be discussing those later in the video that I think are presenting good accumulation opportunities in the face of market dips. Could we get down past 90K? Could we go to 88, 87? I mean, it's all possible, and I'm prepared for that eventuality, but it's not my disposition heading into this week. I'm not panicking at all. Now let's take a look at the others chart, which is the crypto altcoin index, excluding the top 10. You can see that it did reject on the weekly chart here at this $350 billion level. So we have quite a strong move in alts, but we've just started to pull back a little bit, obviously in the face of Bitcoin retracing. Interestingly, despite Bitcoin having quite a strong dip, many altcoins actually held up better than Bitcoin. And you can see this because dominance didn't just retrace like all the way back to 61. It's actually maintained in the favor of the altcoins. And if you look into the weekly chart, this also becomes clear. We had that wick and we've started to make our way back down to this support level. So interestingly, the alts haven't puked all of their gains. Many alts are still up on the weekly, and you can see this if you go into Banter Bubbles, and this is the daily chart, right? A lot of alts are down, 8, 9, 10% down, but if you go into the weekly chart, many alts are still up significantly, like Phantom, Tia's doing really well. A lot of those coins we discussed, like Algo, which were those 2021 coins performing really well, XLM, XRP, but even some of the more recent altcoins are still performing well. Arbitrum, Optimism. Later in the video, I'm going to show you some outliers which look really strong for continuation. Sui had a nice bounce today. That looks good. Say is doing well. So there are certainly many altcoins, some of the metaverse coins, Link, that are still significantly up on the week despite having a drawdown today. So I also think it's important to maintain perspective in terms of the general trajectory for altcoins, which has been bullish and to the upside alongside Bitcoin. Now, interestingly, right now, if you do look at the Bitcoin chart compared to its price action last year in Q4, you can see it's following a very similar fractal. You had this October chop range where the market's super boring and chopping sideways. Then you have your expansionary phase where you have two drives into a slow grind higher. Then you have a bullish consolidation phase where you do see some shakeouts and a little bit of chop, and then you have your final expansion happening in December. So we're pretty much playing out the exact same, which means the next few weeks heading into December and a little bit beyond that into the end of the year could be choppy, but I think it's going to continue to be a slow grind higher with these pullbacks, which give you accumulation opportunities. It's very interesting because if you do look at the historic price data in terms of performance for the S&P 500 in election years, in December, this is actually one of the strongest months. You can see here that the average return is 1.3%, but it's actually an 83.3% differential higher than the average of other months. So December, historically in election years, has actually been really good. And for Bitcoin, Decembers are also typically very good. So I think there's definitely a chance that this fractal plays out. Doc actually did point this out in a show. We did a live stream on November 12th a couple of weeks ago together, and he said he was expecting major liquidations between November 28th and December 3rd. In that show, he said he just thinks that general range is the range where we'll see a pullback at the end of November. And I've actually echoed this on a few shows afterwards, that potentially towards the end of November, we could see a bit of a cool down towards expansion into the Trump inauguration. And this is kind of what we're seeing now. It's not quite November 28th, but it's happening, right? You're seeing some liquidations. You're seeing a bit of a pullback in the market. So for me, this is completely normal. And if anything, expected. Like, we have covered this multiple times on the channel. And if the stock market does have a strong December, I do think ultimately this carries Bitcoin higher as well. And altcoins for that matter. So if you look at the S&P now, it's on the verge of breaking into new all-time high territory. That's really what you need to give, Bitcoin that extra spark. I don't see Bitcoin significantly underperforming or crashing whilst, stocks and risk assets are ripping higher. Obviously, Nvidia had strong earnings as well, which bodes well for risk on assets in general. So I think this is just a classic case of Bitcoin cooling down, Bitcoin consolidating after a massive, massive run up. The same thing happening with altcoins. And for that reason, I do think there are some good accumulation opportunities on multiple altcoins. We're going to discuss a few today that I think we should see significantly higher in 1 to 2 months' time. And you can see here that Bitcoin, even in parabolic bull run phases, it still has these pullbacks of, you could see 2021, right? We had a pullback of 10%, 28%, 25%, 16%, 26%. This is typical even in a bull run. So even pre-peak in November 2021, you did see a lot of these drawdowns. So this is completely expected from Bitcoin that you do see these pullbacks, and they're actually healthy pullbacks. So if you look at the market right now, this is representing a 7% pullback. It's not even that big compared to some of these other pullbacks. Like, theoretically, you could pull back maybe into the mid 80s, and that would still be bullish structure for Bitcoin. Obviously, that would affect alts a little bit. As I said, my predisposition right now, just based on where the stock market's sitting, based on the momentum of the market, based on the sentiment of the market, based on the Trump trade, and based on the amount of sideline capital, is that we won't go that low. But I definitely could see us just chopping around for a little bit here. Ultimately, for me, because I do think that peak doesn't happen until next year, this is still all opportunities to position in coins that you've potentially missed positioning in. And there are quite a few, I think, that maybe some of you missed that, looking at the charts today, there are some coins at really, really good levels that I think are starting to hit some decent risk reward levels. Looking at the funding APR heat map, altcoins aren't overheated, which is a good sign. So you're getting a bit of a flush, but you're getting mostly spot selling and de-risking happening at a time where the market isn't extremely overheated, which is good because it just means that room to come down isn't crazy. Like, imagine if we had red funding across the board on alts right now. You could definitely say, well, maybe the floor is a little bit lower for altcoins in the shorter term, but because funding is relatively okay, I don't think we have that crazy liquidation scenario that, we have gotten sometimes with these altcoin shakeouts because the market gets really overheated. Guys, in a real bull run, in a crazy altcoin run, and that's not even going to happen until Bitcoin dominance breaks down, right? And theoretically, it's still in an uptrend. especially on the weekly, right? Once we get that break. In a crazy altcoin bull run, you'll see red everywhere. It'll be a sea of red on altcoin funding, because basically what people do is they jump into the market with leverage and they speculate. That's not something we've really seen happening. We've seen it a little bit with XRP and ADA over the past few days, and DOGE to an extent, but they got flushed really, really quick. So that leverage didn't have that time to build up and build up and build up. So arguably having these short mini corrections that happen on the way up is actually a healthy thing in terms of overall altcoin market structure, because you keep getting these leverage resets to just, calm the market down a little bit every time it starts to get significantly overheated. Now, if you are a trader though, I can definitely see why these market conditions have potentially been challenging, and I want to just give you a little bit of insight as to how I'm currently playing this market. So Eugene has a very good tweet here that I read this morning and resonated with, where he says, "This has been one of the most challenging bull market alt seasons I've ever experienced. Capital flow doesn't make a ton of sense to me, and degree of moves are very difficult to predict. At this point, I'd usually call for a proper alt rotation in most of CT's darling coins, but now I'm not so sure. Waiting whilst preserving capital for now." And he's right, it's been completely sporadic, the meme coins were really popular a couple of weeks ago. Then on the weekend, we had the old dino coins like XRP, ADA, HBAR, Algo performing really well. Then you might expect a rotation into other coins, but that hasn't happened. We've seen a pullback in the market, and then only sporadic coins from certain sectors are pumping. So it's very hard to trade with confidence right now on the next rotation, because it isn't really following previous cycles. It's still this I personally feel like the market's still getting its bearing, because the altcoin market has been pretty much dead for so long, and it's only just waking up. And you could see this on the altcoin charts. This is the first substantial sustained rally we've seen. The market is still finding its footing in terms of the rotations, and it's not as predictable as last cycle. So for that reason, it actually becomes quite challenging to trade. So I honestly, my genuine advice is try and stay away from short-term rotational trading as much as possible. Now, it's still something I do for fun. I'm still chasing outperformers. I'm still, playing things. Even a few days ago, I was playing Algo, DOT, Luna, which I'm still in that position. I'm playing these rotation games, but that's not the majority of my portfolio. So I just want to make it clear, I think for the average person, it's very easy to get trapped into playing these short-term rotations, when in reality, you should be sitting back, coming up with your core thesis for the remainder of the bull run. I think AI is going to do really well. I think certain memes like X, Y, and Z is going to do really well. And just positioning in those coins instead of getting chopped up. On this channel, what I try and do is give you a variety of opportunities from different sectors, different trading opportunities, both in the short term and the long term. But I think it's really important when it comes to actually implementing trades into your strategy that you do so within your predetermined framework. And I think for a lot of you, that framework will be mostly having a high time frame bias, and then using dips and using underperformance in certain sectors as a chance to add to certain underperforming positions. And because eventually those rotations are going to come back if you have a higher time frame bias to the market. I did a tweet on this earlier, basically about the higher your time frame bias, the more likely you are to be correct. The biggest mistake people make is trying to position themselves for every micro move. You'll just end up getting chopped up. And that's because the propensity of market rotations to happen really quickly, violently, and sporadically this cycle is pretty much higher than ever. So for me, I am more so taking a look at all right, I'm reverse engineering. What is going to do really well this cycle? I have a core belief in a few narratives that are going to do really well. To kind of touch on them very quickly, I think we're going to see memes continue to do very well, specifically the ones on big exchanges and the ones with very strong underlying narratives. I think AI is going to do really well. Mindshare for AI has never been bigger in the real world, and a lot of these coins are still super cheap. I think RWA and DePin are going to do well because there's this utility narrative, which I think is only just starting to bob up, but will only continue to proliferate until the end of the cycle. So I think that's going to do really well. So I'm reverse engineering some of the sectors that are going to do well, and then I'm looking at the coins now, which I think are going to be the best performers in those sectors, and I'm starting to position across them. At the end of the video, I'll be sharing one new coin that I added from the DePin sector. I'll also be sharing an AI coin, which I've recently started to add to my portfolio, as well as a couple other setups which look really good right now. But pretty much my main strategy right now is thinking ahead. yes, I'm playing the short-term rotations. Of course, I'm trading, but I'm having fun. And that's something that I do with the active portion of my portfolio. Remember, in my portfolio video, I always recommend 80% of your portfolio is in high conviction core positions. That 20%, that can be a bit more spray and pray, and that can involve trading, and that in that 20% you can chop in and out. But I don't go over that 20% when it comes to short-term trades, unless I have like super high conviction in a trading thesis. But in this market, as Eugene pointed out, it's quite difficult to have high conviction in those shorter term theses. So I don't think the long-standing narratives are going to change, but in the short term, we are seeing rotations change quite aggressively. Now let's talk about our performers quickly, touching on the shorter term stuff, and then let's go into some of the longer term coins, which I'm positioning and using this market dip as a bit of an opportunity. And if we see continued dips, these are the coins that I've been looking at with their levels. So touching on the shorter term first, Dan says here, corrections like these are perfect to figure out the likely outperformers once a low time frame bottom is found. And this is alpha, by the way. Generally, the strongest coins are the first ones to bounce back and are often the ones that held up the strongest during the correction itself. It's the second part that I want to touch on. Coins that have held up the strongest during the correction. So every time the market corrects, and this is even more relevant for the most recent corrections. Obviously, the most recent correction is going to give you the best data point for this, right? These coins that are holding up during these dips, they're likely to be the outperformers when the market rips. And there's a very easy way to look at them. You can do this on CoinGecko, you can do this on Velo, you can do this on TradingView if you have your own watch list. But on Banter Bubbles, it's as simple as going onto the weekly, looking at what's performing, right? And then going onto the daily during a dip. And if there's green tokens on the daily during a dip, there's a sign something's happening. Now it's Phantom, Say, Sui, and Life. And there's a few others, CRO and Tau. You'll notice a few of the coins I'm going to speak about today are actually part of this list here because they are showing relative strength in the face of adversity. Now, this doesn't only mean that on the bounce they can outperform, but it often means that narrative-wise, maybe for the next few weeks, or at least for the current meta, they're likely to outperform. And a lot of these I was holding in my longer term portfolio anyway, at least Phantom and Tau. Sui to some extent. I was very big on Sui when it was sub $1. It was in my portfolio video at 90 cents, but as it's gone up to like $3, I've de-risked some of that. Say's an interesting one from a trading perspective as well. So to touch on a few of these coins, Phantom, this has been an absolute gem. It's one of my biggest L1 holdings. It's been in all my portfolio videos, and I've given multiple setups on this at 40 cents and 50 cents respectively. This is at $1. I think this continues to go higher in line with this thesis of what holds up during these corrections is likely to outperform, and you've got the Sonic release in a couple of weeks. So I think Phantom is going to be first mover on some really strong tech, which is going to come to the market and I think surprise a lot of people in a positive way. And I think momentum will only continue into that launch. And I think Phantom can go to $2 again, maybe even $3 again, and potentially all-time highs this cycle, which would be pretty crazy. But when you think about it, the market is also going to be bigger this cycle than it was last cycle, and Phantom is still a mainstay. The interesting thing about Phantom as well, and obviously it'll have the new ticker S, which is the Sonic ticker. It's also a 2021 coin. That narrative that of these older like Dino coins outperforming. Phantom kind of also fits into that, although they have new tech with Sonic. It's also an old coin which people resonate with and hold. So I think you'll see some speculation on that part due to that as well. Say's another interesting one. Of course, we've got the Monad launch next year, which is another parallelized EVM chain. And that's a really hard word to say, parallelized. I always struggle with that, all the L's. But Say is like a proxy to speculate on that before it's even launched. Not only that, but it's been an L1 that's been significantly sold off. So I really like how the chart looks here. I love it on the daily. Like you have a noodle flip, you have long continuation. I think on dips, maybe this isn't one for today, but if we do get another dip on this, I would be looking at adding some Say just due to the fact that it's outperforming, and I think it has a decent setup to keep outperforming in the short to medium term. And then another one which looks really good based on technicals and also narrative is Grass. So Grass is an AI coin that I think really nailed their airdrop and obviously had a huge rally. Then you saw a bit of selling, and a drop from 3.9 back to $2, so almost a 50% retracement. But now you're seeing momentum start to gain again. So with these momentum flips, you can basically play the drawdowns and look at continuation on these coins, and then you have inval below the previous low. So it's quite easy to play like these step ladder patterns. So let's say the moving average goes like this, and it pulls back like this, and it keeps making these moves. You can basically like long every single dip, and then you can set your stop below the previous dip. So basically, you can play this like continuation trade to the upside, and then eventually you can even just keep your stop at break even, right? And just have a bit more leeway on your trade. And when I say stop, it can actually be a spot position. Like a lot of the time, playing no leverage or very low leverage is the way to go instead of like levering up, because in case there's a shakeout, you want to basically not get shaken out of your position, right? You can see Rez's grass thesis. I won't read through it all, but he has a very strong thesis as to why he believes grass will continue to go up, and I recommend pausing the video and reading it if you have a bit of time, because this is a really good post which goes through some of the fundamental reasons why grass could continue to outperform, so mixing the fundamentals there with the technicals. Now, I want to talk about a coin which a lot of you may hold by now, and it's one that I'm very bullish on for this cycle. So when we talk about coins that I'm accumulating on dips, it fits the bill really well in terms of looking a little bit further down the cycle, and that is, of course, Lucky Coin, which is the latest meme coin that I've added to my portfolio. Now, Lucky's actually had a dip from, I think it even wicked to $17 over the weekend, and today we saw it at $9, $10, but it's still at $11, so representing a decent discount from that price. Remember, in that video, I said you are going to get dips on this, and they're going to be violent because it's a lower liquidity coin. Market cap sitting around 70 million. The CoinGecko data is incorrect because it doesn't factor in supply that's dormant. Roughly half of the supply is actually dormant, so in old wallets that have been lost from back in 2013, back in its inception. So the real market cap's around 70 million, and as I said in the video, definitely take advantage of dips because you will get these moves, and that's exactly what we got. We got a big pump on Lucky. I actually talked about it at 850, and after that video, so if you did have notifications on, which I recommend having on when I do drop the alpha on this channel, it went from 850 throughout the weekend, and you even had like an hour when it was like sitting between like 8 and 10. Then it ended up going to 17 the next day, so you had a bit of a window there to get in. That was a very good trade. Obviously for me, it's a longer term play, and now you're seeing a retracement still above the entry that I gave you on the YouTube at 850, still obviously above the entry that I gave on the Discord, which was $3. I don't have the exact screenshot. I have it here at 450, but you can see the date. Here we go, that I shared it on the 21st of November when Lucky was around $3. So this was an amazing trade and will be, I think, one of the strongest trades for just the community on the channel, on the Discord, for the rest of the cycle, in my opinion, if my thesis plays out. So you're actually getting now an opportunity to get in on a dip. I just want to clarify a few things from the last video. Some people are like, oh, Miles, you're doing paid chills. I accumulated this on the market like all of you. So I bought on the market totally transparently between $2 and $3. I think my average buy price is $2.70. I've even made more recent buys that may have bumped that higher. If we do get a pullback here into single digits again, I don't know if we do get that now, but if we did, I would also step in as a buyer because I still want to increase my position, even though I've got a large position and I haven't sold any. Because for me, this is a play on community. To give you a bit of a rundown, and I do recommend watching my video that I did on Sunday if you want the full thesis, because I think it's going to do the best job at explaining it as I go into the law. But the TLDR on Lucky, if you don't know already, is it's basically the network that Doge originally forked from back in 2013. So it predates Doge. It's the 22nd UID to ever be launched. So it's the 22nd coin in history. After a long time of the network basically being stopped, they revived it in 2024. So they actually reinstated the chain from the latest block. So it's got the original chain, which dates all the way back to the Genesis block. So it's the only coin that has actually done that. A lot of the newer coins that have, revived from old chains, they aren't really reinstating the original block on the mining. So Lucky is actually the only one that's keeping the OG chain alive. And we've seen a big interest in big miners stepping in. So I think this one is great because it's got the 4-leaf clover. It's Lucky coin, luck is obviously just such an integral part of human nature. So I think especially in the Chinese community where luck is like a major belief, it's one of their core beliefs, especially on Chinese New Year. It's a time of, luck, wealth, prosperity. I think there's definitely a trade into the new year for this one, but also I think once, the Chinese community adopts it, once the Irish community with St. Patrick's Day adopts it, because luck is such an intrinsic part of human nature, I think it's just got the great underlying fundamentals here to do well. Considering it's also the OG Doge, that is such a powerful narrative because Doge literally, and this is all public information, and it's been spoken about on a podcast by the founder, and there's also GitHub information, and all the evidence is there that Doge actually forked Lucky Coin. There's a little bit of like speculation from the Bells community that Doge actually forked Bells. I might need to go into all the lore in a separate video because I have more alpha to share today and I don't want to go too far into it, but that's not actually true. Like Bells copied the Lucky code, and although Doge may have used the Bells code for its deployment, the 1.4 version was actually using Lucky, and even if a recent deployment was using Bells, which may be true, it's just a quick copy and paste. That could have taken 10 minutes. So think about it this way. If someone copies and pastes code from a certain coin and then copies it again for a second time, does that make the new code relevant to the latest copy or the original copy? Like, I would say the original copy, right? So like, even if I don't really get the argument about Bells, oh no, Doge fork from Bells. Well, no, because it was Lucky code, right? If Bells copied that code and then you copied it again to make Doge, it's still the Lucky code. So there's that argument, but I don't really think it matters at all. The underlying thesis here is this is the OG Doge. This is a coin of prosperity, and it's at a $70-odd million market cap. So still not very high because, as I said, a lot of the coins are dormant. CoinGecko still hasn't updated fully to reflect this. But my full thesis is on Sunday. If you missed the trade, you're now getting a nice pullback. I think this has the potential to run up into the billions, especially if Doge keeps running. Like the OG Doge from 2013 with such good branding and a coin that's not even on exchanges yet. Like once this starts getting major exchange listings, I can definitely see this moving higher. So this is when I continue to accumulate on dips. And yeah, I know a lot of you guys have taken a liking to this coin. And I mean, it's pretty easy to like, which to be honest, I had skepticism at first, but when I realized how quickly people liked this coin, it solidified it for me, because Murad's post here says, crypto isn't a charting game, a rotation game or a math game, it's a people game. The secret to outperform is to find wholesome, strong-minded and pure-hearted communities, bet on them and join them. And as soon as I started like mentioning this coin in the Discord, people just gravitated towards it. They instantly got the OG narrative. Like it's the OG Doge. It's the symbol of luck. Like they just understood it really quickly. It's the oldest ever running meme chain from 2013. So it has that history to back it up. And it just clicked with people instantly. So when it's that easy to build community and it has a really strong community already, it just makes the job of the coin so easy, because that is what meme coins are built on. They're built on community and they're built on narrative. And if you have the narrative, it's very easy to get the rest. There are a lot of crap meme coins in the market which just have big exchange listings, which are propping up their valuations, but they might not have that intrinsic story. Crypto is all about stories. If you have the story, the hard work's done, and then you just need to amplify the message, and the message tells itself. And I feel like it's a similar situation with Lucky, that it's got the underlying narrative, it's got the story already. So all you need to do is amplify the message, and it tells itself. It gets on the exchanges. Creators pick it up. I've already seen Ansem starting to mention it a little bit. Crypto Dog, myself. Like, sure, we're acting as the mouthpieces, as community members who are bought in, but the narrative is selling itself, and that's why the community's grown so big so quickly, and my community's resonated with it because it's just such a strong narrative. It's the OG Doge, and it's still at it's 75 million. Doge is at 65 billion. It's 1,000x away almost. So yeah, I really like that one, and it is having a bit of a dip now. So it gives you a chance to get in if you missed it. And by the way, with coins like this and with a lot of coins I speak about on the channel, I just want to say something. Like for me, my longer term plays are not about short term price action. I have a lot of people asking me, Miles, and it's not just for Lucky, it's for any coin. Like, should I buy the dip here? It's pumped 11%. Is it too late to buy? Like, look at market cap. always look at market cap relative to what you think something could hit. So, if Lucky's at 75 mil, do you think that's overvalued? I don't. I think a coin like this can run into the billions with the narrative it has and the fact it's not even on big exchanges yet. So if it pumps 20% today, or if it's down 20% today, or even if it's down 50%, right? Is that really changing the equation here? For me, not really. Whether it's at 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 100, 150 million market cap, to me, that's still cheap. And it's the same logic for any coin. Like, if you have a fundamental belief in it and you're like, oh, should I buy? Chart's looking shaky. Like, it's not all about TA. As Murad says, it's also about believing in something. And I think you'll get yourself very chopped up if you're always looking at TA. Now, of course, I do preach on the channel risk management. Have invalidations if your thesis was validated by a technical level, 100%. But don't just willy-nillingly chop in and out of positions just because of your short-term bias, because the real game in crypto is buying stuff that you believe in, specifically on dips, and holding it for enough time to see that thesis play out. And it's the same on a lot of my AI coins. I'm going to speak about a couple in a minute here. Like, a lot of these coins, they're dipping. They don't look amazing right now. But as soon as AI clicks, that run's going to happen really quick. And it's all this accumulating that you do during lulls and during periods where the narrative's not hot. That's actually going to hold you in really good stead to outperform when it is hot. And it's the same for any meme coin as well, that you think eventually is going to be hot, or is going to get listed on big exchanges, or is going to continue to grow its community. Any lulls are actually opportunities. And it's even the same as Bitcoin, right? But, in Bitcoin's case, lulls might be those big extended bear markets, because it goes quite parabolic in the bull markets. So, I just wanted to give a little bit of context there, because you will get trapped and you will chop yourself up if you're doing too much short-term rotating. Now let's speak about utility, because a trend that I think is going to be very prevalent for the rest of the cycle is utility. Now, we've already seen this starting to crop up a little bit more in recent days. A lot of the utility altcoins are now the top mindshare gainers over the last 37 and on the daily. Here for the gainers on Kaito. And I think this is just affirming the beginning of a bigger trend into utility. Now, as I said earlier, I think maybe ETH could even start outperforming Bitcoin soon. That's just a gut feel I have. But another gut feel I have is that DeFi, DePin, infrastructure also starts to perform pretty strongly. I still think certain memes are going to perform really well. Obviously, Lucky's now become one of my core meme coin holdings that I really believe in. I'm a big believer in Doge, with Pepe, some of the Murad coins even, I think, just because they're so oversold, they're probably worth a play. So I've been DCing a bit into them. AI memes like Goat, Zerebro, like these I think will all do well. But I'm trying to be a bit more selective there and mostly playing the leaders actually in the memes, not all the lower cap rotations. I think the bigger trade from now until the end of the cycle, well, not bigger because memes will be very big still, and I still think they're going to outperform most other sectors. But I think instead of saying bigger, what's a better word? Forgotten. I think forgotten's better. The forgotten trade this cycle has been utility. And that is now starting to come back, but I think you're going to see it really coming back. So I kind of sat back and asked myself, so utility is a broad word. It basically means, in this instance, it means anything that's not a meme, any infrastructure play. What are the subsectors of utility that are going to perform really well? And for me, it's AI, it's DePin, and it's RWA. Those are the three. Why? Because they're not just random utility. There's a deeper narrative to all of them. RWA, you have the Larry Fink narrative and you have the tokenization narrative, which is now for the first time really prominent in the space, and you have real products in the space that are actually giving you valuable offerings there. Secondly, you have DePin. DePin is a natural extension of AI and powerfully the NVIDIA narrative with this worldwide GPU shortage, and DePin is one of the most viable solutions to economize access to GPU power. So it makes a lot of sense. And I think it's, in terms of genuine flywheels and tokenomics, it's one of the only sectors for me that makes sense in terms of long-term sustainability. A lot of these protocols have very ambitious yet could be highly successful models because they're actually implementing the concept of incentivization across a big network. That could be done, via staking, but also primarily in DePin what you see is node staking. So because it ties into AI and the NVIDIA narrative, but also has that large-scale participation incentives mechanism, I'm very bullish on DePin this cycle. And then thirdly, but not least, is AI. AI, as I mentioned before, it has that strongest real-world narrative behind it, in terms of everybody knows about AI. Everybody's either scared of AI, thinks AI is the future, is speculating on AI. That's only going to get bigger and bigger. I mean, right now it's just the surface, but when people start losing jobs to AI, when new AI tech launches and it changes the game, when people are seeing these videos which are indistinguishable from real life that are AI generated, they're going to realize, wow, I think it's going to be an aha moment for a lot of people. And this will only continue to develop as new code and new products in the AI realm get released and shipped. And it's only going to bode well for the AI narrative in general in terms of mindshare. And crypto is all about mindshare. So what you'll see is as a lot of the AI sector in general gets attention, many of the crypto protocols are going to act as liquid, speculatable proxies. I don't even think the AI bubble in the stock market is done yet. I think it's going to go a lot higher now. I do think it might collapse in late 2025 or 2026, but I think AI as a bubble will be one of the biggest financial bubbles, and crypto is just such an easy way to get exposure to the upside of that in a liquid fashion. And because a lot of these protocols are at really low valuations, I think it just makes a lot of sense. So let's talk about some of those AI coins right now. So looking at the sector, you have, your large caps. I think NIA's going to do well. I think Tau's going to do well. I think AIOZ is going to do well. Render, I don't mind. I think it's okay, but I think it's become a more competitive space now with Aether and AIOZ, so maybe the liquidity is not flowing in as strongly. There are a lot of the smaller caps which I've spoken about. So these are the large caps, and then there are the smaller caps which I've spoken about, which I've bolstered out my portfolio. I'm kind of running a barbell. I've got the majority of my capital in Tau, NIA, AIOZ, a bit of Render, and a couple other coins, but those are the main ones. And then I've got a smaller percentage, maybe 30% of that representative portfolio in DEAI, EMP, ENQAI, Neural, anything else, a couple others that I'm looking at, and then one more that I'm going to be sharing for the first time on the show that I've recently been adding to my portfolio. So I'm kind of running that barbell at the moment. And that's because I value the risk-reward proposition of the large caps, but I also think the lower caps, because their market caps are so damn low, they can absolutely explode. And some of these I'm talking about are 19, 20 mil. Like ENQAI, for example, 15 mil. EMP, 19 mil, DEAI, 50 mil. These, Neural, I think it's 70. These aren't crazy valuations for some of what could be, the future leading AI projects, especially with a lot of their tech, which is pretty crazy. There are a couple others as well, which I've been looking into and I've been really impressed by. Spectral is another one that I hold that I forgot to mention before. So I think AI will do really well, but a lot of it hinges, in my opinion, on Tau. I think Tau, as the leader of the sector, needs to wake up to breathe life into the rest of the sector. It's kind of like memes, right? Like Doge. When Doge wakes up, all the other memes perform well. So I think Tau is at a point where A, it's actually a pretty good risk-reward buy. You're getting back into that noodle on the 3-day, and you've got this high time frame support level. But B, there are some really exciting upcoming things for Tau. And once again, I won't take up too much of your time by reading this, but pause this video if you want and read this amazing post. This is Mia's Tau thesis for December 24 to February 25, which I described to. It goes through some of the reasons why Tau is very strong and will suck up liquidity from the AI space. So as I said, you could see Tau leading just like Bitcoin leads before an altcoin season. This is how I see AI season playing out. BitTensor needs to perform and break new highs, right? It needs to go into new highs. And then you'll see that rotation where Tau sells off because a lot of the AI community is in Tau. And then you'll see, obviously, people will start speculating on lower caps during this run-up, but you'll see the big blow-off top for AI happen once Tau starts to dip. Similar to the big blow-off top on altcoins happens when Bitcoin, after its aggressive rally, starts to dip. So for me, Tau is a great play to play that leading phase, but it's also just a good play in general. You can continue to pause here for number 2. And for part 3, you can pause here as to why Trump's inauguration is not priced in for BitTensor. And you can see a few reasons why Tau's been underperforming, number 4. And then number 5, you can see the domination of Tau. And then number 6, the BitTensor EVM which is the next iteration for Tau. So this was a great post, brilliant fundamental write-up on the Tau thesis, which made me really bullish after reading it. And yeah, that's a coin that I'm looking at. Another one's Near Protocol. I think Near is, it's actually quietly been performing really well. This is one that I said I was accumulating at that support there at 440. It did dip below, but it's nice now sitting up at 6. It wicked into that 740 region. I think any dip on Near is probably worth also buying for that leader section of your AI portfolio. Now, I mentioned earlier there was a new coin that I added, and this is in the AI/DePin sector, and that is Pinlink. So I actually recently added Pinlink. I met with the team and I was really impressed with what they were building, and I decided to add this as part of my DePin portfolio. It's actually really funny because I've talked about on this channel my fundamental beliefs for this cycle being AI, DePin, and RWA. And Pinlink is AI, DePin, and RWA. Basically what it is it's a RWA tokenized open marketplace, which basically drives costs down for AI developers that essentially need GPU power, and it allows DePin asset owners to essentially create new revenue streams for themselves by plugging in their assets into the network. So I'll go a bit further in a future video as to what they actually do, but their founder is very well known in the space. He worked at Engine, and it's a really impressive tech stack that they've actually built. You can see how the tech stack works if you want to pause this video and look at it. But for now, all you need to know is I've added it to my portfolio. It covers DePin, AI, RWA. There's other big creators as well, which have started to talk about it. I know Alex Becker came on as an advisor. Love him or hate him, Becker is a major player, especially in the retail space of crypto. So as the bull market picks up and his videos get back to 500,000 views, just having him aligned with the project, I think is a plus, considering, the market cap isn't that big. It's 44 mil, 55 mil, fully diluted. So it's another project I added to that low to mid cap range of my AI/DePin portfolio. And I wanted to give you a bit of an update on that today. I skipped a section in this video, but another sector that I am accumulating on this dip is RWA. So going on from Pinlink being a tokenized platform for RWA and DePin AI, Chintai is also a platform very different from what Pinlink's doing. It's extremely different. This is basically the Shopify of RWA. So it allows you to use Chintai's infrastructure if you want to bring a variety of real-world assets, like real estate, on-chain to tokenize them. You can basically do that with the institutional-grade asset infrastructure that Chintai offers. They're a licensed platform, so they actually have the license from the Singapore Monetary Authority. The price action looks really great despite the market dipping. It's actually been holding and consolidating above 25, which is extremely bullish. So fundamentals aside, the chart looks really good, but then you combine it with the fact that they've got huge things coming. You could see here that there's something big coming, a big update to the network. I do think that there's fuel here for this to do really, really well, not only in the coming weeks, but this bull run as RWA continues to get bigger. And you've seen Mantra run into the multi-billions. You've seen Ondo run into the multi-billions in terms of FDV. I think there's room for 1 to 2 more players to actually run into that space. For me, the most logical candidates are CHEX, given what they've built. And I think you're going to see a lot of partnerships and announcements coming over the coming weeks and months as well to lend credibility to what I've been saying. And you've also got CPOOL, which has, especially heading towards the end of this year and the beginning of next year, some big things coming with their Ocean mainnet. And you could see this is actually looking good because you've got this dip. You can see it on the daily chart, but also the 3-day. You've got this nice dip, which is starting to form after it's run up really aggressively. And it's actually quite a nice retest of this money noodle. So if you are a fan of playing the noodle, that's a dip that you want to buy if you're looking to add some more RWA exposure to your portfolio. So those are 2 that I'm looking at as well. I'm going to leave it there for now because I want to save some alpha for the rest of the week. But that's pretty much it for today. Generally speaking, not worried right now. Any major dips you see on alts, even if the dip gets bigger or, we get more dips, I'm not really worried. I'm personally looking to accumulate the top stuff. For me, the top stuff right now is utility in the way of RWA, DePin, AI, and also quality memes. Lucky being, my main conviction position right now, but there also are a few others, like, in the larger caps that I think are good. I mean, obviously, Whiff had the Robin Hood listing. You've got a few others like, Mew and Floki, who are doing big things in the Web 2 space as well. Obviously, Pepe and a few other meme coins as well, which we won't get into today. So those are the top narratives which are comprising my portfolio right now. And in terms of price action, I do think this is like a normal lull heading into the end of November before I think what will be a green December in general. You just might see like that early December like shakiness until probably that stronger price performance heading into the end of the year. At least that's my current read on the situation. Would love to know your thoughts in the comments below as well. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel if you aren't already, and I will see you in the next video. Hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Peace out.